Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
Are you following Mike Butcher too? I've been following Mike all over Hawaii. Well, not really, but certainly he's obviously on Twitter. That's usually the designation when there's an @ sign.
I've now blocked Chris Pirillo.
Oh, great. So then how are you talking to me right now?
Because we're in real life.
Oh, okay. Now you write for TechCrunch, but a specific part of TechCrunch. Tell me more about that.
Well, a few years ago, I started writing for TechCrunch UK, and then a few months later, we started talking about expanding it across Europe. And this year, we relaunched it as TechCrunch Europe. And specifically, we face in the other direction, away from Silicon Valley, basically, towards Europe and the whole of the Europe, Middle East, and Africa kind of region generally. And so it's not just the European Union, which is about sort of 16 countries, but the continent of Europe. So also, Russia and that kind of thing, because it's a disparate community. In the US, you've got a real conglomeration, real sort of cluster of people in the valley, but in Europe, everyone's sort of spread out. So it's more like a kind of a series of hubs in Europe. But what we do is we try and surface technology companies, startups coming out of the European region, people who have got great ideas. And rather interestingly, London has become a big centre for Twitter startups, because London is such a... London people and the UK love Twitter and love social media. And so you've got all these kind of Twitter startups like Tweet Meme, and Twitter Feed, Twitter Job Search, that kind of thing. So rather interesting. So, but that's just part of what we cover, and we now have about 16 contributors all across Europe writing for us now in TechCrunch Europe.
Now, what drew you then to this whole scene, whether it's, you call it Web 2.0, social media, whatever the new phrase happens to be?
Well, obviously I dye my hair to put flecks of grey in it in order to give myself more gravitas.
Yeah.
But were I not to do that, obviously you would see a sort of young visage before you. But I have been writing about the internet for a few years, shall we say, and I did edit a magazine in London, a sort of trade magazine, for a few years, and then worked for an American magazine, actually, the Industry Standard, back in the day.
Which magazine? Was it with Future?
It was the Industry Standard, which was the one launched by John Battelle back in sort of the early part of this century. And
the one back in Europe?
In Europe, yeah.
Oh,
we
wow.
launched the European version. European versions of the American products is kind of my shtick, I guess. And so I did that, and then I got into started writing. I was writing freelance for people like The Guardian, the FT, and ended up starting writing about Web 2.0 as it was. And then heard about this blog TechCrunch, met Mike Harrington in London, and then eventually, started working for TechCrunch basically. And it's just an exciting area to cover. And I love sort of the new wave of new journalism, which is cameras and blogging from anywhere. I mean, for me, the internet is the office, and it doesn't really matter where I am, basically, as everyone knows. So that's how I got into it, and I think it's definitely like the new way of doing journalism.
Now, the reason you're here in Hawaii is for the Rethink Hawaii little confab.
Yeah.
Is what drew you out here for this specifically? I mean, there's a lot of conferences and things to attend on a regular basis.
Although I cover Europe, it's always fascinating to come to a place where you can expand your network of contacts. And this was an interesting conference because you've got people here from Asia, from China, Beijing, as well as from the US tech scene. So it's quite an interesting sort of meeting. Interestingly, it's only 5 hours from Silicon Valley and 8 hours from Beijing. So I think Hawaii, all they need to do is get gigabit broadband in here, and I think a lot of geeks will be flocking here.
Yeah.
That's an interesting. I mean, that was sort of an interesting point, and also I met some people in Europe, like the Geeks on the Plane guys who were over here, and I wanted to sort of hook up with them again, and so that was the main reason as well, and absolutely had nothing to do with the fact that it was in Hawaii, I must admit.
Really, nothing at all to do with the wonderful aroma of flowers that might be wafting across this.
It's dead to me.
This beautiful sky that we have behind us. Now, have you been to Hawaii before?
I'm afraid not. No. Have you, Chris?
Yes, I have. This would be my 4th journey, or as I like to say, the 2nd journey, really. I don't count the first 2 times.
For you North Americans, it's very much a holiday destination.
Yeah, kind of. It kind of is. Now, do you see any bigger trends inside of Europe in the tech scene, startups, the types of startups that you're seeing? Are you seeing a lot of bootstrapping, funding? What's the general feel and flow of these startups?
Well,
these
I think
companies?
it's always going to be tough because you don't, like I say, you don't have that big physical hub that you do that America has in the Valley, and also North America generally has kind of big hubs, but in Europe it's all spread around. Generally, I'd say the biggest hub in Europe is definitely London because of the financial aspects. Because VCs, the pan-European VCs, all now have offices in London. There's big angel networks, things like that. But the trends are, unfortunately, it's going to be tough for early stage companies. In fact, just today there's been an announcement from Intel Capital that they don't see a lot of early stage venture capital continuing, possibly going down. So European startups do tend to have to be lean startups, in the phrase that's been coined, and tend to have to bootstrap a lot. And but you know what? You can get very tough entrepreneurs, very sort of resourceful entrepreneurs in Europe. I mean, if you want to be an entrepreneur in Athens, in Greece, then you can have a tough time registering your company. It's tough in Southern Europe particularly. But there's this whole societal change going on in Europe because the recession and the downturn has made people have to become more resourceful and not rely so much on the state, which tends to be more of the political infrastructure of European countries, and have to become more entrepreneurial. And that's creating, there's a new wave of new generation of entrepreneurs coming through now. The days of leaving a university and getting a job in Renault or Mercedes or wherever, are kind of over. So, and you have to kind of be more resourceful now. And the internet has obviously empowered people to do that. And what I really enjoy about TechCrunch, doing TechCrunch in Europe, is bringing all those people together. And it's kind of like planes starting to fly above cloud. They're kind of noticing each other now a lot more in Europe. And go like at Le Web in December will be another big meeting of those people. So I think there's a huge sort of demographic change going on.
Now if you have any tips for the submission process for a company or startup or idea to get covered in TechCrunch UK, would you be able to share any?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest mistake people make is that they talk about their company, but they don't tend to put it into context. They don't say, we are the next YouTube for X, or here are our competitors, here's where they've got it wrong, here's what we're going to go do right. So I would say if you're going to pitch TechCrunch Europe and you send me an email, you can go to eu.techcrunch.com/about. All my details are there. And I have a network of 17 contributors all around Europe. If we cover guys from Serbia, Croatia, as well as all the big countries like France, Germany, Spain, Italy as well. So we're trying to really, dig deep now, go down to the coalface. So, just get in touch.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
My pleasure.